It began with a single sound, a soft beep, followed by silence. Somewhere in a quiet Florida town, a 15-year-old boy pointed his phone toward the clouds. He pressed record. What he captured was never meant to be seen. A video so disturbing, investigators would later say it solved the crime before the suspects even spoke. His name was Ethan Torres, a teenager who loved filming life, but who unknowingly filmed his death. Tonight we look into the final recording of a boy who documented everything, including the moment everything ended. You're watching Everyday Crime 247. Real stories, real crimes told as they happened. Subscribe and stay with us, because this case will leave you asking why Ethan ever pressed record that night. Before that night, Ethan was just an ordinary kid, 15 years old, born and raised in Clearwater, Florida. His world was small: school, home, a few friends, and a cracked iPhone that never left his hand. Teachers described him as quiet, thoughtful, a kid who preferred watching others to being watched. His classmates said he had a habit, recording everything: birthday parties, hallway jokes, random sunsets. Ethan liked to say, if it's not on video, it didn't happen. He lived with his mother, Angela Torres, and his 9-year-old sister, Maya. Their apartment overlooked a parking lot and a basketball court where neighborhood kids played until dark. Angela worked long shifts as a nurse's aide. Ethan often picked up his sister from school, cooked noodles, and helped with homework. Life was simple until he met Marcus Hale, a 17-year-old who lived a few blocks away. Marcus was everything Ethan wasn't: loud, confident, already on probation for petty theft. With him came two others, Jaden Ross and Troy Miller. They were older, reckless, and popular online for prank videos. To Ethan, they seemed exciting, the kind of friends who might finally notice him. So when they invited him to hang out, he said yes. At first it was harmless: late-night pizza runs, funny clips in parking lots, harmless dares. Ethan filmed everything. The boys liked having someone who knew how to edit. Their small YouTube channel even started gaining views. But behind the jokes were flashes of cruelty. They teased Ethan for being nervous, called him camera boy. Once, they locked him in a shed for 10 minutes, laughing while he begged to be let out. Still, he went back, because being included, even as the punchline, felt better than being invisible. Over the next weeks, Ethan's grades slipped. His mother noticed bruises he couldn't explain. When she asked, he smiled and said, "It's just for the videos, Mom." None of them knew those videos would soon become evidence. Evidence of betrayal, evidence of fear, evidence of the night Ethan Torres pressed record one last time. By early October, Ethan was spending almost every afternoon with Marcus, Jaden, and Troy. The group met at the skate park behind a small strip mall that always smelled like gasoline and pizza. To Ethan, it felt like belonging. To them, it felt like entertainment. Their friendship lived through phone screens. Record everything, post everything. Harmless stunts at first, jumping fences, fake scares, pretending to steal snacks. They called it content. Ethan became the cameraman, the quiet one who caught every laugh, every fall, every close call. The more views they chased, the bolder the dares became. The boys started staging arguments for shock value. Sometimes they targeted Ethan, pushing him until he looked scared, because fear got clicks. One clip, later found on Ethan's phone, showed Marcus shouting inches from his face. You can hear Jaden laughing in the background, saying, "Keep rolling, this is gold." Then the video cuts off. After that, Ethan started deleting some recordings, but he kept one folder locked with a password. Its name, REAL. At school, Ethan's friends noticed changes. He'd stopped bringing his camera to class. He sat alone at lunch again. When a teacher asked about his new crowd, he shrugged. "They're just my friends," he said. That same week, Marcus's group pulled off a stunt that got them suspended, setting off fireworks behind the gym. The incident barely made local news, but it deepened their reputation as fearless. For Ethan, it was a warning sign. Still, he couldn't quite step away. Peer pressure has its own gravity. It pulls quietly, invisibly, and Ethan kept orbiting around them, half included, half target. The messages found later on Ethan's phone tell their own story. Marcus texting late at night, "Meet at the site tomorrow. We got a crazy idea." Jaden adding laughing emojis. Ethan replying, "What are we filming?" No answer. The site was an abandoned construction project on the edge of town. Concrete shells, metal rods, puddles reflecting streetlights. A place teenagers used for dares and quick videos. Ethan had been there before, but never after dark. His last text to his mother that afternoon read, "I'm out with the guys. Be home later." She replied with a heart emoji. He didn't open it. Around 8 p.m., the boys met at a gas station. Witnesses would later recall laughter, energy, the glow of phone screens as they filmed each other buying sodas. Ethan looked quiet, clutching his tripod. They walked the half-mile to the site, joking, daring, shouting. A neighbor heard them and thought, just kids. But Ethan's phone tells a different story. At 8:47 p.m., he opened the camera app. The light flickered once, recording shadows and voices. The file name, VID_1114. What happened next would stay locked in that device for 2 days until detectives pressed play. For now, the video is silent, but the final moments it captured would reveal how fast teenage cruelty can turn deadly, and how a boy's habit of filming everything became the reason his story was ever known. Night settles over Clearwater like a curtain. Streetlights flicker, one by one, until the neighborhood is a patchwork of orange and shadow. Somewhere beyond those lights, 4 teenagers step through a chain-link fence. The air smells of dust and rain. The half-built construction site rises like a skeleton. Empty foundations, stacks of bricks, puddles reflecting the moon. Ethan walks behind the others, holding his phone. He hits record. A single red light appears on the screen. You can hear voices, laughter first. Marcus shouting, "Yo, we're doing this." Jaden answering with a joke. Someone kicks a can. It echoes. It sounds like every other night they film together. For the first minute, nothing seems unusual. The camera pans across faces, smiles, graffiti on cement walls. A joke about who can climb the highest beam. They're teenagers. Loud, careless, alive. Then the laughter fades. The video shakes. Someone bumps Ethan. Voices overlap, harder, sharper. Marcus's tone changes, playful to hostile. You can't make out every word, only fragments. Accusations about a borrowed speaker, a missing $50. Ethan's voice comes through once, small. "Chill, I'll get it back." The argument grows louder. Jaden's laughter returns, but it's nervous now. The camera lowers toward the ground. All that's visible are shoes, shifting gravel, puddles rippling. Then the image blurs. Someone's hand over the lens, a scuffle, a shout. Detectives would later say the phone kept recording for nearly 7 minutes after that. The screen stayed black, but the microphone captured everything. Footsteps running, voices panicking, and finally quiet. When investigators reviewed the file, they stopped it halfway through. It wasn't the sounds alone, it was what they represented. A timeline, evidence that the confrontation wasn't an accident. Around 9:30 p.m., neighbors on Harbor Street heard shouting near the site. One woman looked outside, saw flashlights, and assumed kids were filming another prank. She closed her blinds. By 10:15 p.m., The construction area was empty again. The only thing left behind was a phone lying face down in the dirt, its flashlight still on. At 6 a.m. the next morning, a worker found it while unlocking the gate. He noticed the cracked screen and called police. Officers followed a faint trail of footprints and discovered a backpack. Then, just beyond a concrete wall, the body of a teenager. They didn't release his name immediately, but the phone made identification easy. Its lock screen showed a smiling boy with his sister, captioned "Family First." The device was taken to the digital forensics lab that same day. Within hours, technicians extracted the final file, VID 1114, recorded at 8:47 p.m., exactly when Ethan's mother had texted him to ask if he wanted dinner. Investigators sat in silence as the video played. No one in the room spoke. They watched until the recording cut off. Then one detective whispered, "He caught them. He caught everything." That file would become the centerpiece of the case, proof of who was there, what was said, and how quickly things spiraled. Without it, the truth might have stayed buried in the dark corners of that unfinished building. But with it, police had a map, a sequence of voices, movements, and minutes that pointed directly to 3 names already known in the neighborhood. Later that afternoon, officers arrived at Marcus Hale's house. They found him sitting on the porch, scrolling through his phone. When asked about Ethan, he said he hadn't seen him in days. Then they told him they had a video. His face went pale. Within 24 hours, Marcus, Jaden, and Troy were in custody. Each told a different story. Each claimed the others started it, but the phone never lied. For Ethan's mother, the call came early the next morning. She remembered hearing the words, "We found him," and nothing after that. The device her son had used to film his world had become the witness to his final night. The footage would never be released publicly, but its echoes, every word, every sound, would decide what came next. Sunrise touched Clearwater quietly that morning, as if the town itself didn't yet know what had happened. Behind yellow tape, detectives moved through the construction site, every step deliberate, every word recorded. Evidence markers dotted the ground like small yellow flags in grey dust. The phone, Ethan's phone, sat sealed in a clear plastic bag. It was cracked, but still powered on. Inside it, investigators hoped, was the truth. Detective Laura Henderson led the team, a 14-year veteran, patient, analytical, and by her own words, haunted by cases where the victim never gets to speak. This time, she realized, the victim already had. Forensics technicians extracted the contents of the device. Photos, messages, GPS pins. The most crucial file, VID 1114, was copied to a secure drive and logged as primary digital evidence. Then, investigators began reconstructing the timeline frame by frame. The GPS tag placed Ethan's phone precisely within the northern section of the unfinished site at 8:47 p.m. A second data point showed it motionless from 8:53 onward. Call logs revealed no outgoing calls afterward, but message notifications kept coming. Friends asking where he was, his mother texting, "You okay?" Detective Henderson replayed the video again and again, isolating background sounds. A passing train at 8:49 p.m., a barking dog 2 blocks away. Those details matched neighbors' statements, verifying the timing down to the minute. The audio also caught 3 distinct male voices besides Ethan's: Marcus, Jaden, and Troy. Their tones shifted from laughter to confrontation, then a thud, then panic, and finally one voice whispering, "Delete that." The whisper was Marcus. The clip, paired with later phone location data, dismantled the version of events he tried to give detectives. He claimed Ethan fell after a prank went wrong, but the digital evidence told a different story. By 2 p.m. that day, police had secured warrants for all 3 suspects' devices. At their homes, officers found matching sneakers with concrete dust and half-edited video drafts in a shared cloud folder titled CLW Nights. Each file was a fragment of their social media life, clips meant for likes, shares, and fleeting attention. None were uploaded after November 14th. The last entry in the folder, a blank thumbnail labeled final_cut.mov. It had been created minutes after Ethan's video stopped recording. Music deepens, slow and investigative. During questioning, Jaden cracked first. He admitted they'd argued, that Marcus pushed Ethan, that it got out of hand. He claimed no one meant for it to go that far. Still, the law drew a line. Under state statute, reckless acts leading to death during a recorded event fell under felony murder. The case shifted from missing person to homicide. News of the arrest broke within hours. Teenage filmmaker records his own death, one headline read. Reporters crowded the quiet street outside Ethan's home, searching for images, for answers, for meaning. Brief ambient sound of news chatter fades under narration. Online sympathy flooded in. Messages from strangers calling him the boy who never stopped recording. Some urged the public not to watch leaked clips. Others demanded the video's release. Detective Henderson resisted both extremes. She said, the footage belongs in evidence, not on screens. The story itself should be enough. Over the next 2 weeks, the police report grew thicker. Digital forensics linked timestamps, cross-referenced social media posts, and mapped the boy's movements through geolocation data. Each data point built the narrative Ethan hadn't lived to tell until his own recording finished it for him. By December, the district attorney announced formal charges: second-degree murder and tampering with evidence. The courtroom would later hear only excerpts of the recording, played in low volume to protect the victim's dignity. Even then, silence filled the room afterward. Reporters noted that several jurors wiped their eyes. Detective Henderson simply closed her notebook and whispered, "He told us everything." The trial began 6 months later. The courtroom was small, pale, and every seat filled. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but sketches and whispers traveled fast. At the center of it all sat 3 teenagers who once called themselves friends: Marcus Hale, Jaden Cross, Troy Miller. Each wore the same gray uniform. None of them looked older than 17, but in front of them, the evidence felt far larger than youth. Detective Laura Henderson testified first. She described the timeline built from Ethan's phone. The video, the voices, the moment laughter turned to panic. She spoke calmly, never raising her tone. The defense argued it was an accident, that they'd been filming a prank gone wrong, that they didn't mean for Ethan to die. Then the prosecutor played a portion of the audio. The court fell silent. It wasn't violent or explicit, only voices, arguing, and one sentence that changed everything. "Delete that." Those words, the prosecutor said, proved intent, not to kill, but to hide what happened, and that made it a crime that could not be undone. Ethan's mother sat in the second row, hands folded, eyes fixed on the table in front of her. When the verdict came, she didn't move. Marcus Hale was found guilty of second-degree murder and obstruction of justice. Jaden and Troy received convictions for involuntary manslaughter and evidence tampering. The judge, before delivering the sentence, said something few forgot. This case reminds us that the cameras we hold can either expose truth or erase humanity. In this instance, the truth survived, but at a terrible cost. The courtroom emptied quietly. Reporters stood outside, waiting for a statement. Ethan's mother only said, "My son wanted to be a filmmaker. I wish he'd had more time." Over the next few months, the story spread across the internet, not as another viral clip, but as a warning. Schools discussed it in assemblies. Parents used it to talk about online pressure and the dangers of chasing digital validation. Detective Henderson spoke at one of those assemblies. She told students, "Your phones are witnesses to your choices. Every record you make, every post, is a piece of your story. Make sure it's one you can live with." Back in Clearwater, a small mural appeared on a concrete wall near the construction site. It showed a boy holding a camera facing the sky. Below it, painted in white, he told the truth. Even when no one was listening, people began leaving candles and notes there. Some said thank you, some promised to live more carefully. Others simply left their phones on flashlight mode, a tribute of light for the boy who kept recording. In the end, Ethan's story became something he never planned. A lesson about technology, choices, and the thin line between capturing life and losing it. His video was never posted online. His mother asked that it remain private. He shared enough, she said, but his story, even without the footage, still reached millions. Because sometimes the most powerful recording is the one that teaches the living to look closer before they press record again. This was the story of Ethan Cole, the boy who recorded his own murder, narrated by Everyday Crime 247. If you found this story meaningful, consider subscribing for more true stories told with truth, empathy, and respect. We live in a world where almost everything is filmed. Every laugh, every argument, every mistake captured through the lens of a phone. But Ethan's story reminds us that behind every screen, there's a real heartbeat, a real person. What began as another teenage video became something else, a reflection of our time, our choices, and our need to be seen. In chasing the moment, they forgot the meaning, but the camera remembered. Today, Ethan's video lives quietly in an evidence file. It will never trend, never go viral, and maybe that's the most respectful ending it could have, because what it showed the world wasn't entertainment, it was truth. So the next time you open your camera, remember his story. Ask yourself what you're capturing and why, because every frame we record is a piece of who we are. This was the boy who recorded his own murder. I'm your narrator from Everyday Crime 247, bringing you real stories told with empathy, truth, and reflection. Subscribe if you believe stories like this deserve to be remembered.